Santa Claus was born in 1945. He had a boogie-woogie Coca-Cola army. And when the colonies gave the polio to Doris Day, Santa helped the Beatles take McCarthy away. That baby boomer Santa, he's never gonna die. Santa fought at Woodstock in Vietnam. Smoked a ton of acid and burnt his bra. And then in 1970, he did more drugs. And his hair stayed long and he grew a mustache. Baby boomer Santa, he's gonna stay alive. Santa invented Spielberg and microchips. Santa invented Coca-Cola and aerobics. He made the Iron Curtain and the Gremlins too. Fake butter and AIDS and Twin Peaks. Baby boomer Santa, thank you for MTV. Baby boomer Santa, thank you for everything. You're welcome. You're welcome for everything in the world. You're welcome. You're welcome for all that I bring to the world. I'm Baby Boomer Santa. I bring the gift of the world. Baby Boomer Santa, I'm an American girl. Festive greetings, our legion of elves and reindeer. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, where social awkward snowmen, crazy stocking stuffers, and all-around naughty list members convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Jolly Holly Bookworm, a.k.a. the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening and happy holidays, folks. It's the winter solstice tomorrow. Batten down the proverbial hatches. This one's going to be a doozy. I can already feel it.
Yep. And I am your host / Santa Claus burglar, the brainstormer of pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing fine. How's everybody else?
Not complaining. I mean, we had a pretty good last couple of days of you and I chatting, so that's any day for me. So,
yep.
Mm-hmm. We were actually pretty lucky to get so basically Dalton sent me everything this week.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to get multiple articles instead of a couple articles, and some topics that I try to think of that would be good for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So this might just be a regular lengthy podcast, which is cool.
Especially considering that for like the last 3 weeks we've been coming up short, like ridiculously so.
Yeah, I do take partial responsibility for that because I have been kind of very out of it lately. Yeah.
For the record, folks, he may have caught the coof.
Oh no, there's probably a most. I most definitely probably have it.
So after he survives, he gets to wear the "I survived the plague and all I got was this lousy T-shirt." Sure.
Yeah. All right. So this is from Tor.com. So like our first article, I mean, yeah, this is from Tor.com. The blessed meaninglessness of the Nightmare Before Christmas. This is by Leah Schindelbach. If I said the name wrong, I'm sorry. This was published December 14th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, don't send us all of these.
Yeah. My sort of opening statement, I guess, is just this is a really, really condescending title. And kind of because I've skimmed it and I know where she's gonna go, this argument's gonna really annoy me, I have a feeling. But let's have her explanation first, and then I will rant as necessary.
All right. All right. So December's a minefield. Most of the year, you can watch movies or TV shows, and you more or less know what you're in for. If you're watching the latest Martin Scorsese movie, things will probably get heavy. If you're watching a sitcom, the stakes will probably be low. Even now, in the era of prestige TV and extremely niche indie films, when the writing is, I think, sharper than it's ever been, and creators feel free to hop genres and assume their viewers' intelligence, you can usually decide how much depth you want to deal with and tailor your viewing accordingly. Not entirely sure I agree with some of that stuff.
Yeah, no, again, the issue of the condescension and the sort of hipstery irony to everything bullshit. Okay, because this is something I want to convey to Hollywood as strongly and stridently as I possibly can. Bending genres does not make you clever in and of itself. It can make you clever, but it does not do it in and of itself. Sometimes the most honest and earnest intellectual thing you can do is just to play something straight, because we've come to the point where it the bending of genres and the hipstery ironification of genres is in and of itself a cliche and an annoyance. And in fact, usually what bending genres tends to mean in this day and age is you have no respect for or value of the original genre to begin with. It's a set because as as innovative as bending genres can be or mixing genres can be, sometimes people just want the the straightforward, good old fashioned kind of story. Sometimes when you go to see a sci-fi story, you just want to see a sci-fi story. You don't want it to be sci-fi and also social commentary, or um, when you see a horror movie, you want it to be straight up horror, not horror plus social commentary. Actually, a lot of these things are just blended with social commentary because when pseudo intellectuals want to make themselves feel smarter than everyone and create a movie that's not very good but has things to say, quote unquote, they just slap some social commentary on there and automatically it makes it better than all of the other contemporaries within that genre. Sometimes the smartest and most sincere thing you can do is to be sincere and just play through. Some of these stories last for as long as they do because they matter to people. And they don't and a lot of people don't like seeing their um shit made fun of and mocked and then being expected to golf clap afterwards. Moving on though. Brainstormer? Did he step away from the call? Or did StreamYard fuck up? What happened?
I'm back.
Okay. I just didn't know if you left or if it was just StreamYard being an asshole again.
Check the private chat.
Okay. That works. Okay. Now, moving on.
Right. All right. One sec. But not in December. In December, even the wackiest comedies have to stop the action long enough to mediate on capital M meaning, and the grittiest dramas make room for capital M miracles in order to acknowledge the annual cultural fulcrum that is Christmas. What?
The smug again. The smug is what's bothering me here. the inherent assumption seems to be that anything is better than that, or that her, I'm going to assume, extremely cynical and peppered with irony perspective is inherently more serious, or can be taken more seriously than that. And this is exactly dead center, the heart of the problem. Because some people, believe it or not, unironically like meaning in things. Now, there's an asterisk here that even I will grant, because one of the things that a lot of people equally hate to needless, cynical deconstructionalism is ham-fisted, preachy, over-the-top moralism. That's why one of the most annoying kinds of episode that any show can have is the very special episode, in air quotes, kind of episode. The one that has the drug moral, or the the stereotypical after school special kind of moral, where the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air all of a sudden needs to pull out, um, Carlton and Will getting arrested, and Will lecturing Carlton on how naive he is about how the system doesn't work and all that shit. Those kind of episodes really rub people the wrong way, both just casual viewers and people who genuinely enjoy like television and cinematography, because heavy-handed moralism can be a pain in the ass. But to say there is no difference between heavy-handed moralism and meaning is frankly the stupidest fucking false dichotomy I've ever fucking heard. And believing there's no difference between meaning and morals is exactly the goddamn heart of the problem. That doesn't mean you can't tell a good story with morals, and that doesn't mean you can't tell a good story with irony. But going too far into either one and exclude any other kind of meaning, and you're a dumbass. Because sometimes the meaning has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with meritocracy, quality, good storytelling, good, well-rounded characters that it's easy and sincere to care about, and so on and so on. Because a lot of times meaning has nothing to do with morality and everything to do with sincerity and depth of feeling. And you seem to have A, conflated those, and B, presented yourself as the person to preside over which of these is valid and which isn't. And the intellectual arrogance combined with sheer intellectual stupidity is staggering. My dear. Moving forward.
But not in December. Oh, I read that. Sorry.
Yeah.
In all of my searching, I have found only one film that ignores this tradition of meaning making. That movie is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Did you watch the movie? Is my question. Because let's let her define what she means first, and then afterwards, if her definition is stupid, I'm going to have to do that thing where I explain a very obvious thing, like the person isn't capable of understanding it in its simplest terms, and putting it in very stark and strident terms for her. But let's let her explain what she means first, and then afterwards, I'll fill in the gaps if there are any.
One sec. Alright. The Nightmare Before Christmas is a fairly straightforward story. A living skeleton has a midlife crisis and decides that since orchestrating Halloween doesn't make him happy the way it used to, he's going to take Santa's place on New Year's and Christmas Eve. Over the course of 76 minutes. Wait, only 76 minutes. Huh.
Yeah, it's a very short movie, actually, when all is said and done.
It draws inspiration from The Nightmare Before Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the night before Christmas. I don't know. I said nightmare.
Yeah.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Bride of Frankenstein, and in a sideways way, It's a Wonderful Life as Jack Skellington learns that his true happiness has been right in front of him the whole time.
Yes, and how exactly are you going to acknowledge that it takes inspiration from all of these without containing any meaning? Because that's a really, really narrow and myopic definition of meaning if you genuinely do believe that something can pull from all of those sources and mean absolutely nothing, while simultaneously being a Christmas classic that people have revisited since it came out in 1993, pretty much every year. I don't understand why her definition of meaning is so narrow, and why it seems to be inexorably tied to the concept of morality. You know there are other kinds of meaning, right? That it doesn't have to be a all morality or all irony. There can be striations of meaning entirely contained in neither of those, in between those, right? I feel like I'm repeating myself, but this seems to be a consistent block in her brain. Moving on, though.
Mm-hmm. Right, but one thing the film does not do, which sets it apart from all of its references, is, and as far as I can remember from the entire Christmas canon, is give us any meaning of Christmas. Again, I mean, she's not technically she's not wrong, but
I, I mean, if you squint just right, I can see what she's getting at, but she's also wrong in the sense that there's a very clear meaning to the movie that it just has nothing to do with morality or the quote unquote capital M meaning, like the big great grand meaning, which is, the balance of dark and light, and essentially why Halloween and Christmas are separate holidays is sort of the theme of the movie, because everything that happens in Nightmare Before Christmas comes from the dark energies of Halloween being stagnant in the form of Jack being all morose because literally he's too successful. Which I myself, when I touched on Nightmare Before Christmas in last year's Christmas special on my channel, um, I did kind of laugh at the fact that the main problem and Jack's equivalent to the I Want song literally contains the line, "The fame and praise come year after year, does nothing hold these empty tears." Like, he's literally complaining about how everything is too easy and he's too successful. And Jack, I don't use this word often, but you are a privileged fucker and you need to shut the fuck up, please. But point being, Jack is stagnant, so he goes and finds another source of energy, which is Christmas, and then the energies of Halloween and Christmas mixing predictably blow up in everyone's face because the dark and the light are supposed to play off of each other, not intermingle. So, if anything, its meaning is actually larger than the usual myopic moral meaning. It has more to do with like metaphysical mechanics of, these energies are set aside for these specific times, and these energies are set aside for these specific times, and they counterbalance each other perfectly, but they really, really, really probably should be kept at some kind of arm's length from each other. Otherwise, boom. That's if there is to be said to be a meaning in Nightmare Before Christmas, that's it. The heart and home and wholesomeness that is Christmas, and the dark whimsy that is Halloween, are meant to contrast each other, not intermingle. Much, at least. Moving forward.
mm-hmm. All right. All this. Yeah. Okay. All the specials, Nightmare Before Christmas riffs off, provide meanings like crazy. Charlie Brown gives an explicitly Christian meaning, but builds on that by gently implying that offering love and acceptance to be the broken whether outcast boys or spindly trees, is part of the holiday. Rudolph, I mean, like, you have anything to say with the first part, or you want me to continue?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
Rudolph bypasses religious references and posits that Christmas is a time for general openness, generosity, and found family. The Grinch steals all the stuff of the Who's Christmas, but comes to realize that Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. The special doesn't go into what the more is exactly, but the Who's singing facing together seems to be a part of it. Um, yeah, to be fair, those themes are kind of universal. They're just in more reference.
Well, with the exception perhaps of the Charlie Brown one, which is why, in my opinion, Charlie Brown is the weakest of all Christmas specials. And I know, I just committed sacrilege to like 50,000 people's childhoods at once, but the Charlie Brown special, by virtue of the on the nose speech from Linus at the end, sucks. It actually is made better if you leave off the Linus ending. And I know, again, I'm being controversial there, but it's smarter to bet on the universal themes than it is to nail your colors to the mast and force Christianity down everyone's throat. Because again, if we want to be technical, most of the celebratory parts of Christmas are well predating Christianity and even Abrahamic religion and monotheism altogether. But we've already covered that before, and we'll come around to it again here in a minute. But still, the exception to that rule is the Charlie Brown Christmas, which is heavily forced and heavily almost propagandistic about it. But yeah, everything else is very much in the universal or the abstract. Yeah, acceptance, very much a universal. Found family, very much a universal. Even to a certain extent, the Charlie Brown stuff up until the forced line of speech is more about being an outcast or being an eccentric and how that can actually make things better and not to get so hung up on the exotic trappings part. Very much in the same vein as like the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, which I think was handled a lot better, and the Halloween special, which also was handled at least a little bit better, although the weird create the concept of the Great Pumpkin out of nowhere does bother me. Anyway, moving on.
Right. Actually, full disclosure, I don't. No, I have seen the Charlie Brown special. I just haven't. I just don't remember it at all.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're already invested in the Peanuts characters, it's not very memorable. And again, I know committing holiday sacrilege, but
holy shit, I don't think I've seen it. I don't think I've seen that special since I was in first grade.
It's been a while, but it hasn't quite been that long for me. I tried to watch it on Freeform back when it used to be ABC Family. When they were doing the 25 Days of Christmas, they had the Charlie Brown Christmas special on.
I think they still do that.
Yeah, they still do the 25 Days of Christmas. Honestly, whoever owns what used to be ABC Family now, if they tried to get rid of 13 Nights of Halloween or 25 Days of Christmas, I think their entire viewership would riot, because everyone who owns standard cable or standard satellite and watches ABC Family watches it, I'm guessing, about 10 times more during Halloween and Christmas than they do any other time of year. I don't have any data to back that up, but I would stake money on it.
Mm-hmm.
The viewership definitely goes up during those times because specifically of those traditions. And if you got rid of them there would be riots in the streets, and it would mostly probably be middle-class soccer moms doing it, but never mind. Moving forward.
Most specials, television shows, and movies, from It's a Wonderful Life to VeggieTales to Stephen Colbert's 2006 special, The Greatest Gifts of All, to the in-universe BoJack Horseman holiday episode, come to a head around an uncanny event. The confirmation of Santa's existence, an angel/god saving someone, snow falling miraculously to save a vampire, or at the very least, a vague idea of Christmas spirit, something extra normal that brings people together.
Yes, and what do you call the forces of Christmas giving Sally a vision to hopefully prevent their destruction in Nightmare Before Christmas? Or Jack responding to Christmas Town with the over-the-top excitement of "What's this?" Like, "What's this?" is basically the "This is Christmas spirit incarnate" anthem in the entire movie. And I know because every time it's Christmas morning in my house, I always get "What's this?" stuck in my head every Christmas morning ever since I started watching that movie. But moving on. Again, she's being very narrow here, and it's really weird to me. Because you could just as easily argue the other way, that Nightmare Before Christmas is just like a Rudolph or one of the other ones that isn't explicitly Christian like Charlie Brown is. So I don't know why I don't know why she completely missed the balancing of dark and light theme in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sailed over her head, I guess.
Yeah. Hell, even National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I've never seen that, has the Griswolds gaze up into the stars while Clark gave a speech about the true meaning of Christmas. And Home Alone peppers in a few scenes of Kevin McAllister going to church and bonding with an elderly man in between setting traps for the wet bandits.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Home Alone thing, as much as you obviously you remember more of the traps and just the hijinks.
Yeah, the Looney Tunes in real life. That's basically what I always refer to it as. He does a Looney Tunes episode, but he does it in real life.
Right, but there is a story of how Kevin kind of alienates himself from his family.
Yeah, it's oddly enough a lot like It's a Wonderful Life. Of course, it's a lot less dark because It's a Wonderful Life focuses on George Bailey wanting to commit suicide, and then Clarence having to show up and be like, "But you've made the world a better place with your existence, though. Let me show you how." And then he does basically for George Bailey what the Ghosts of Christmas do for Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. And in this case, it's what Circumstance kind of does for Kevin, which is he takes his family for granted, he hates his life, he's miserable, and the universe is like, well, then fuck you, kid. Let's see if you can hack it on your own without a family.
Right.
Now, now, granted, it's very obvious in the movie that he didn't actually make his family disappear. It's just comedic coincidence, but thematically, it's the same shit.
Yeah, and the old man, I don't remember the character's name, but
the neighbor that everyone accused of being potentially a murderer, whose name I don't remember.
Yeah, but he is a thematic showing of what happens when you basically cut yourself off completely from family and the loneliness.
Yeah. It also gives a chance to show how Kevin actually is a pretty smart and pretty insightful kid when he stops being a hyperactive little shit and actually thinks about shit for 5 minutes. Because the funny thing I've always loved about the Home Alone movies is for as much as the adults in the movie help Kevin to clarify the obvious fuck up he had, he also helped them without making it feel heavy-handed or self-contradictory, because it is this weird thing of sometimes it's easier for us to see our own mistakes when someone else is making them than when we're making them. So putting those things in context is kind of interesting. And it's always framed as kind of the kids say the darndest things kind of thing, but the adults always end up taking inspiration from Kevin in a way that I'm not even sure he's aware of most of the time when he does it, which is funny. But moving on.
Mm-hmm. God, those again, the whole Home Alone thing. I really like those church scenes, actually.
I think yeah, it is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And actually they don't, even though it's set in a church, they don't really go with the Jesus very, very much in it. I mean, there's a scene where Kevin hides amongst the nativity statues, but they never mention God or Jesus. It's just sort of the somber atmosphere of a church and the wholesome atmosphere of the movie itself sort of do all the work you need done. It's a good way of mentioning providence without actually going and being like, here, let me give you a sermon. Bang.
Right.
What yeah. As much as I never thought I would say this, Charlie Brown, take notes on Home Alone. Home Alone did it better. And again, never thought I would say those words in my life.
I have a question, and again, this is a sidebar, and I apologize for that. But did we ever get a real definitive ending for the old man?
No, it's implied that he eventually went and got close with his son again and everything. So yay, good for him. But we know that there's never a follow-up scene of him sitting with the phone and being like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna call him or anything. The closest thing to that we get is he shows up to save Kevin when the wet bandits for 5 seconds get the upper hand on him, and the same thing happens with the homeless woman in Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, which actually I think is a little bit better than the first one. And again, don't at me for committing holiday sacrilege.
All right, so back to this. Even dark, in your quotes, holiday films like Bad Santa and Krampus, or horror movies like Black Christmas, are self-consciously setting themselves against the usual holiday fare. Yeah.
I wouldn't really consider Bad Santa to even be in the holiday category, to be honest. The dressing up as Santa is a thing in it, but there's no, other than the obvious hee but juxtapose some imagery thing, there's nothing really Christmassy about Bad Santa. There is definitely something Christmassy about Krampus. Krampus is caked in holiday lore and holiday imagery, because again, Michael Dougherty appears to be the master of how you do a holiday movie, in kind of a horror vein. But that being as it may.
These films depend on our understanding of Christmas. It's written weird there, as a meaningful time, so they can subvert our expectations.
Again, the only one that really subverts anything in that lineup is Bad Santa, and that's because it's not really very Christmassy at all. It's a non-Christmas movie. Krampus does not do that, and if you want to talk about cases where the holiday lore is enforced, again, anything made by Michael Dougherty that's holiday themed is very, very, very much about enforcing the lore. Goddamn it! Because, well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love Michael Dougherty's holiday movies so much. And side note, Michael Dougherty, when are you gonna make a reboot of the Leprechaun franchise, but done right this time? Because I want that. I want it on, like, in March on St. Patrick's Day. I want Michael Dougherty's version of Leprechaun. That needs to be a thing. But moving on.
Mm-hmm. All right, but Nightmare's Christmas stands apart. The film doesn't want to bash you about the head with the idea that there has to be a meaning.
What in the name of every force of holiday cheer are you talking about, woman? I'm convinced these people see different movies than I see when I look at movies, but I digress. The entire song, "There's Something Up with Jack," is about him bastardizingly using science for whatever fucking reason. Why couldn't he have just used alchemy? I mean, he could have gone to the witches instead of the mad scientists and solved like 99% of the problem. That's neither here nor there. But looking for the meaning of Christmas, and then his failure to recognize it leads to doom for all parties involved, because he actually, yeah, the main flaw in Jack as a character, apart from the fact that he's a privileged whiny bitch, and no, I don't use those terms loosely because I hate using the word privileged at all, but it applies to Jack. Apart from the fact that he's basically so successful that he's bored, the main problem is he doesn't actually understand Christmas, even though he emotionally knows that he likes it. So you completely miss the point of the movie, because all of Jack's problems stem from the fact that he eventually gets so bored with trying to figure out the meaning of Christmas that he just goes ahead and assumes there isn't one. And then he proceeds to be like, well, if there isn't one, then I can just take this and it'll be the same as it ever was. But of course, because there's the theme of the dark and the light needing to counterbalance and contradict each other rather than commingling, the forces of Halloween trying to co-opt Christmas predictably goes up like a lead balloon. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. The story begins in an extra-normal space and proceeds from there. Jack is a seemingly immortal living skeleton who is the king of Halloween Town, which also democratically elects a mayor. I think he's more just a figurehead than anything.
Also, Jack is the Pumpkin King. Nobody said anything about him being the king of the rest of Halloween. I'm assuming he's just the spirit that watches over all the jack-o'-lanterns and all the pumpkins and shit. I think is what we're supposed to infer there. Which is an important job if your purpose in existing is to bring about Halloween, because jack-o'-lanterns are freaking important, don't you know? But yeah, he's not the king of the entirety of Halloween. He's just the king of pumpkins. Moving on.
Alright, makes sense. I gotta reread that. Story begins in extra normal space and proceeds from there. Jack is a living skeleton who is the king of Halloween Town. No, he's not. Which also democratically elects a mayor. Makes sense. Everyone in Halloween Town is supernatural. Ghost dogs, vampires, werewolves, clowns with tearaway faces, etc. Halloween Town exists in relation to realms dedicated to other Western holidays. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, and bafflingly, St. Patrick's Day.
Why is that baffling?
Oh, I would kill for a sequel that takes us to the inebriated horror show of St. Patrick's Day land.
I would imagine St. Patrick's Day land is more filled with a bunch of leprechauns than drunk people. Because the worlds are more based around the iconography of the holidays rather than their reality. Because the whole premise of the holiday world appears to be, and again, I might be extrapolating a little too much here, but it appears to be the people in the land are in charge of creating the holiday for the normal ordinary humans in the actual world. Which is why in the song Making Christmas, when the Halloween creatures are singing about making Christmas, one of the lines is, "It's ours this time, and won't the children be surprised? It's time to give them something fun they'll talk about for years to come." And so on. Yeah, so I'm assuming that St. Patrick's Day Land probably features a bunch of leprechauns who do leprechaun things. How that relates to the entire rest of Fae, I don't know, but the lore of Nightmare Before Christmas is kind of weird when you stop and think about it. But moving on.
Yep. One sec. So we can guess from what we've seen in Halloween Town that the other holiday worlds are also full of immortal beings, including Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. But having started from this place of mythology where vampires and Santa and St. Patrick are all equally indisputably real, the film goes on to focus on the stuff of the holidays. And it may be the only Christmas movie where the meaning, in air quotes, of Christmas isn't ever found. Dude, I like. There's so much like just pretentiousness.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, why are you shitting on the concept of meaning and putting it in air quotes like it's a sarcastic thing? Second of all, the meaning of the movie is very obvious if you stop and think about it in non-moral terms for like an eighth of a second. Because, as I said previously, not all meanings have to be moral meanings. Some meanings are qualitative, or functional, or mechanical. And in the case of Nightmare Before Christmas, it's sort of about the metaphysical mechanics of the energies of Christmas and the energies of Halloween, and how the dark and the light sort of contradict and contravene each other in a balancing manner, and why the two don't usually commingle. In my case, it kind of did, because I always asked for really weird shit at Christmas because I was a really weird kid. But you know, that's me. That's why whenever I see the scene in Nightmare Before Christmas where the kids are unwrapping their stuff and the kid is weirded out by the idea of a shrunken head, I'm sitting there like, I would like the whatever version of me exists in that universe would be extremely happy by this state of affairs. Like the stop motion version of Dalton is not upset by this at all. But moving on.
Right. Okay. And what of Jack? It's his existential crisis turned conversion experience that fuels the movie.
Is it a conversion really? I wouldn't frame it in those terms. He just finds out that there's something else, because it's not like Halloween just satisfies him. It's that he's bored because he's too successful. Again, the line is, "The fame and praise come year after year. Does nothing halt these empty tears?" Yeah, he's bored because he's too successful. Which, side note, it's a testament to how good that movie is that we're basically following the asshole who's like, "My life is too good, yeah," and we don't care because he's
Well,
relatable.
part of me, and I feel like maybe at some point during next Halloween or October, we have a discussion about it. That I personally think that it's just that it's just again like it's the same thing year after year. It's such a monotony at this point that it's more he's I don't know.
I think it's probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I just find it funny that our protagonist's "I want" song is, "I want to find something that doesn't come so easily to me, so that I can actually have a challenge." Because normally when people say shit like that, they're being arrogant fuckers, and you want to see them fail horribly. But Jack is actually a nice guy.
Mm. All right. Let's see. All right. He wants to understand the feeling of Christmas, invisible but everywhere. In order to do that, he studies snowflakes, ornaments, candy canes, repeatedly asking, "What does it mean?" and later sings, "Simple objects, nothing more, but something hidden through a door. Though I do not have the key, some things there I cannot see."
Okay, so you have watched the movie fairly closely. So how did you miss the fact that when Jack says maybe uh uh maybe I'm overthinking and stuff like that, when he says that, he is wrong to say that. The reason why he can't have the key to the meaning of Christmas is because he is a creature of Halloween, and the dark and light don't get each other. Is supposed to be the point there. Also, I would put a small asterisk there by the fact that he used scientific equipment on very evidently magical shit, and that never ever goes well. And you would think, given that there are plenty of witches and other magic users in Halloween Town, that he would think to use alchemy instead. But then we wouldn't have a movie because he would be able to physically bottle the energy of Christmas, and then he would figure it out, and then we wouldn't have a movie. So I guess for the sake of the plot, he's stupid enough to apply science to magic because dumb.
And a moment later, I've read these Christmas books so many times. I know the stories and I know the rhymes. I know the Christmas Carol is all about heart. I feel so full, it's tearing me apart. As often as I read them, something's wrong. So hard to put my bony finger on. Implying that Christmas is a feeling or spirit that he can't access. Finally, he declares that just because I cannot see it doesn't mean I can't believe it. But believe what exactly? Before he nails down what the elusive feeling is, he decides that the only way to get closer to it is to embody Santa. He's like a Catholic convert deciding to skip CCD classes and instead become.
You missed a line. There's a line there, and I don't remember the exact line, but there's a line where he's talking about maybe he's overthinking it, and maybe it's much simpler than he's making it, and so on. That's where he goes wrong, and that's where you apparently blacked out in terms of your interpretation of the movie, because in the context of the movie, we as the audience are supposed to gather from that he is wrong, because he makes that assumption, the assumption of maybe there is no larger meaning, and then he proceeds to create a disaster because he doesn't understand it. It's not him trying to understand it that's the problem, apart from the fact that he's a creature of Halloween and therefore by definition will not get it. The issue is when he stops trying to figure it out and goes ahead assuming that there is no meaning, that he basically is. It's just Jack, in his own earnest, honest way, does intuitively what deconstructionalists do all the time on purpose intellectually, which is, if there is no meaning, then I can make the meaning whatever I want it to be. And yet, no, you can't. These words and concepts mean things, and you can't just rewrite them willy-nilly. And if anything, that is what the rest of the movie after that point is supposed to show. You can't just put a Halloween skin over Christmas and call it the same thing, because those two things are opposed forces. Which is why in the movie, when Sally gets too close to Jack while he's doing his deciphering, the powers that be give her a vision of a Christmas tree, which she, like Jack, sees value in, and then she sees it burn to the ground because the forces of Halloween and the forces of Christmas aren't supposed to coexist quite that closely. Moving on.
Right. All right. As the film continues, the embodiment of Christmas is more explicit. The song "Making Christmas" shows us that the rest of Halloween Town thinks that the holiday is a thing to be manufactured, literally through the production of presents. And when Sally's
Yes, that is the mistake. That is the mistake of the. Again, she's framing the plot of. She's essentially framing the following action of the mistake that these characters make as the reason this movie doesn't have a larger meaning. And I have to wonder, was she watching the same movie I was? Because in the movie I've been watching since I was a little kid, the point has always been these two things belong in their own separate spaces, and mixing them together brings disaster because the two forces don't coexist. And it would be just, and here's the thing, maybe you need a movie where for some reason Jack gets sick and Santa Claus has to fill in for him to get this, but in a movie where it's the other way around, it would be just as disastrous. If the forces of Christmas tried to do Halloween, it would probably come off as so weirdly saccharine that it would be unrecognizable as Halloween, just in the same way that Halloween creatures making Christmas presents makes everything come off as distorted because putting a Halloween skin over Christmas doesn't really make much sense to most people. Unless you happen to be a goth or a weird kid, in which case you're fine either way. So, yeah, but whatever.
Yeah. All right. As I read that. And when Sally's fog rolls in and the little boy says, "There goes Christmas," seems that they all think Christmas is the act of going into the world with gifts and wreaking havoc.
Well, to be fair, these are the people who are in charge of creating holidays in this particular universe. Therefore, in the same way, I would imagine they would define Halloween as what we do every year, which is the going into the world and spreading Halloween's version of joy. So it makes sense. It's like that saying what you just said there is kind of like saying it's almost like factory workers think that cars are the things they produce. Well, yeah, because car factory workers tend to produce cars. That's their job. Joy.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Yep. And then, of course, we come to the most important part of the movie when Jack gets shot down on Christmas Eve. He is saved by a signifier, not the signified. Not a real angel, a Clarence or a Dudley or a Feist or a Dolly Parton, but a statue of an angel, stone carved and silent.
You're reaching there. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. He falls into a graveyard, and the thing that is most likely to catch him in a graveyard setting is going to be a statue of something, and a statue of an angel just makes the most sense because people tend to put statues of angels and shit in cemeteries. I don't think it's supposed to symbolize his fall from grace or anything. I think it's just they wanted him to they wanted him to get his Halloween mojo back, and the closest thing in normal civilization that isn't around Halloween that we have that symbolizes like the dark whimsy of death and whatnot is graveyards. So of course he finds solace in a graveyard. That makes sense. And in fact, as we see after he finishes his lament and goes off to save Santa Claus, he's able to reach Halloween Town via going into a grave. So clearly there's some kind of connection there. Moving on, though.
Yep. All right. So Jack sings "Poor Jack" and realizes he's screwed up and decides to give being the Pumpkin King another shot. This is also the film's only reference to God. Also rare for a Christmas movie to not have at least a light implication of divinity, which implies that God exists in the universe of the film. Since Santa, the Easter Bunny, and Jack himself uh,
I
do it himself, I'll do.
I think you are reaching very, very far here. You're getting all this from the fact that a single statue in a graveyard looked like an angel. That's one hell of a reach there. I don't think there's any and also just because miracles tend to happen a lot in Christmas movies, in a lot of Christmas movies, it's not directly tied to any particular deity. It's just sometimes it's just the energy of Christmas itself, in and of itself. Because again, there's an implication that these days have these vibes, for lack of a better term, all by themselves. And that's kind of how in pre-Abrahamic civilizations they were viewed. It's not someone bringing these energies, it's the fact that these energies just sort of naturally coalesce this way. So yeah, to say that any particular Christmas movie that doesn't mention God is weird or out of the norm is dumb, and to say that there needs to be some connection to God because that one statue looked like an angel is really, really, really stupid and almost conspiratorial. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. All right. But here again, what does it mean? As I mentioned, Jack is the undisputed immortal ruler of not just Halloween Town, but Halloween as a concept.
No. Wrong on both counts. He is referred to as the Pumpkin King, which means he controls that one singular aspect of Halloween. That's not all of Halloween. Granted, jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkins are a very big part of Halloween, therefore explaining why he has the power he has over Halloween Town, because he's basically their version of an aristocrat, but he's not the ruler of the entire thing, or even the town. That's why the mayor is the mayor. But as the mayor says, he's just an elected official here. He can't do the job by himself, which explains why he often defers to Jack. And it seems like Jack gets away with as much as he does because a lot of people just like him, which is, fair. Because given that some of the other major players in Halloween that we've seen throughout the movie aren't very upright fellows, and Oogie Boogie even violates the borders of Halloween to go and fuck with kids even when it's not around Halloween, which is why he's referred to as the no account Oogie Boogie. Yeah, Jack is pretty much the only Halloween figure that it seems like everyone A does like and B should like. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. All right, one sec. Okay. And yet, when he wants us to know he's serious about something, he invokes a deity that is never otherwise mentioned. So why bring it up now in a theological vacuum? The holidays represented in the four extreme worlds are all Western commercialized holidays that can be practiced as easily by secular people as by those who are religious. There isn't a tree portal or either the Eids or for Buddha's birthday, Feast of the Three Kings, or Yom Kippur. So when Jack uses the word God, how are we supposed to take that? Okay,
Have you never just used the phrase "God damn it"? You're not invoking a deity or evoking a deity. You're just it's just sort of shorthand for the powers that be. And I don't even remember when Jack used the word God anyway. Yeah, this part of the article is her reaching farther than like the Grand Canyon would stretch. Moving forward.
I was going to say,
Oh, okay, sorry.
well, I was just going to say, well, for one thing, we're getting kind of back in swing of things. This article has no fucking point. I mean, there is a point, but there really isn't.
Yeah, it tries to make a point and it does not proceed to.
But it does a similar thing with a lot of articles we've covered in the past, which is there doesn't really seem to be a
yeah, there's no rationale, there's no evidence, there's no argument. It's just stating a bunch of things.
There's no
Coherence.
Coherence. Thank you. It's just like stitching things together poorly.
Yeah, and usually by failing at very obvious observation skills.
Yeah.
Or very obvious logic skills.
Okay, so back to the article.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Sorry, I'm getting tired. I mean, I don't know. I'm legitimately asking. This has been bothering me for years. But to get back on track, none of this brings us to any conclusions about what constitutes Christmas in this story. According to the narrative beats in most Christmas specials, this should be the moment when Jack reckons with a larger meaning of Christmas. But what he focuses on instead is that he messed the holiday up, and crucially, that the way to set things right is to set Santa free to deliver presents.
Yes, because he, as a being of Halloween, is not cut out for this shit. So let the guy who handles Christmas, presumably every time, handle Christmas. That again, the point here isn't a moral one or some grandiose one. It's just these are the forces of Halloween. They have a particular nature to them. These are the forces of Christmas. They have a particular nature to them. Both are to be appreciated and respected, but they probably shouldn't be tossed around willy-nilly. And again, I know this movie doesn't exist, and I'm kind of grateful it doesn't exist, but if there was a movie where Santa, for whatever reason, decided to fill in for Jack, like maybe Jack was sick that year or whatever, that would go down horribly too, because everything would be a really saccharine, really weirdly optimistic version of Halloween, and nobody would be happy with that either. Because the two are opposing, they're necessary counter forces to each other. It's kind of like light and shadow or night and day. You kind of need both of them. Too much of one or the other kind of fucks everything up. Too much nighttime and we end up with a nuclear winter. Too much daytime and the earth gets scorched because everything's basically reduced to either magma or a desert. That's the kind of point they're making. Too much Halloween and everything is dismal and depressing. Too much Christmas and we end up with Stepford Wives. Or some version thereof of where everyone is myopically and ridiculously happy all the time.
Or a Hallmark Channel.
Yeah. Or worse. A Pureflix movie being played on the Hallmark Channel.
I don't know what Pureflix is.
Good. You probably should. It's basically a film studio that makes Christian propaganda movies.
Did they make God's Not Dead?
Yes.
See, I watched that. Wasn't as bad. I could see the issues. Granted, I only saw the first one, so.
Yeah, the first one was saved by Kevin Sorbo being a really good actor.
Yeah.
As much as his mustache twirling atheist professor was a straw man, and I kind of hated him, but you were supposed to hate him, so I guess mission accomplished movie.
Mm-hmm. All right. Which means Santa isn't rescued by angels or elves or red-nosed reindeer. Initially, he's saved by Sally, who does a rather disturbing riff on a striptease to distract Oogie Boogie.
I didn't need to think of it in those terms, but thanks.
I don't think it's disturbing, honestly.
I don't either. I mostly just find the concept of that annoying because I like Sally too much to grade her like that. But also, although that does bring up a really interesting question, what the fuck were the elves doing during all this? Like Santa just goes missing, and they're like, I guess he'll be back. Like, I almost want like a comedic short film explaining what the fuck the elves were doing during this whole thing. Because by rights, they probably should have come looking for him, but they just, I guess, were busy. Or, well, to be fair, I guess they have been making toys for or gifts for 364 days a year. They're probably just enjoying their one night off.
Yeah. Okay, after she's captured two, it's left to Jack to swoop in and set the two of them free. My colleague, this is in parentheses, my colleague Emmett Asher Perrin insists, and I agree, that the subtext here is that Jack and Oogie had a thing, a serious thing, and at least some of the viciousness of the battle is fueled by that. It would certainly explain the tone. What?
Yes, Jack repeatedly refers to Oogie Boogie as no account. And my personal headcanon as to why that is because Oogie, by virtue, by being the boogeyman, extends the forces of Halloween beyond their natural time by being the boogeyman at times when it's not just. He essentially, by virtue of being a childhood monster all year round, he pisses Jack off because Jack apparently understands that Halloween is only supposed to be in a certain frame of time as far as Oogie Boogie goes, but didn't understand it when it came to co-oping Christmas. But yeah, that gets really weird.
I think there's like a video game that has like a prequel to Oogie Boogie and Jack's story.
There was one a long time ago, and I can't remember much about it.
Yeah, apparently like Oogie Boogie was a king of this holiday about bugs. Like I think it was called Bugtown.
Yeah, I've heard of that backstory, but honestly, I'm glad that didn't make it into the movie because that is a really really stupid reasoning. And maybe I'm tooting my own horn here, but it makes much more sense the version that I sort of intuitively came up with, which was the reason why Oogie Boogie is referred to as no account is because while everyone else restrained their Halloweenness to that one time a year, i.e., keeping Halloween to the boundaries of Halloween, Oogie Boogie escapes Halloween and goes into the regular human world and becomes a monster in everyone's closet because he likes torturing kids too much. Also, come to think of it, there is that line in This Is Halloween where one of the creatures says, that's our job, but we're not mean in our town of Halloween. So it implies that most monsters in Halloween Town do what they do because they want to make kids happy or they want to make people happy. Whereas Oogie Boogie is a mean fucker who wants genuinely to torture and harm people, as we see during his Boogie song. So yeah, it makes perfect sense why no one likes Oogie Boogie. Either it's because he goes off into the human world when he shouldn't, and everyone knows he shouldn't, or it's because he's genuinely as mean as creatures from Halloween are usually depicted, and everyone doesn't like that because you're supposed to, essentially, you're supposed to leave your work at the office, dude. Basically.
He's a true monster, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas most people in Halloween Town, they're just doing their job. But genuinely, they do it because they want to make people happy, and the old line of "life's no fun without a good scare" and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. The big final boss battle isn't between good and evil. Santa isn't powerful enough to save himself. There is no cosmological safety net. The stakes seem to be that if Jack fails, not only will he, Sally, and Santa die, whatever that means in this universe, but also this will end Christmas, all because Santa won't exist to deliver presents.
Was there ever any implication that he was going to successfully kill them? Because those were never the stakes in my mind. The stakes were Jack undoing his fuck up and Santa being able to do his thing. There was no implication of death in here. There was a lot of torture, but that's because Oogie Boogie is an evil fuck. Yeah, she's extrapolating in weird places here, and I don't understand how she can extrapolate this shit out of nowhere, but she can't understand that when Jack was assuming there was no meaning to Christmas and that he could just take it. How does she not understand how much of a mistake that was, given that the rest of the movie is showing us the consequences of that thought process? But moving on.
Yeah, alright. Right. But that whole existential abyss is mute because Jack wins, straight up murders his enemy, and then anxiously asks Santa if he can fix everything.
He didn't murder Oogie Boogie, he just took him apart. All the bugs are still alive at the end.
That was terrifying. I'm not gonna lie.
Good luck putting yourself back together there, Boogie, but yeah, no thanks. You're fucked, but you're not dead. And I do like that Jack, even when he's being angry at Oogie, like his main objection is just, you treated my friends badly. And for as much as he did fuck up, if Jack had his way and Lock, Stock, and Barrel had not gotten involved, it's not like Santa would be locked up anywhere. It's just Jack would be taking it over. And honestly, I kind of wish at the end Santa had taken Jack with him to show him how it's really done, and then they could have bonded over it. That might have been a better ending. Because Jack never had any malice towards him. It was just, it would be kind of fun if I did this. So I'll do it. I'll do it 1 year and it'll be fine. And of course, because of the nature of Halloween and Christmas, that went up like a bag of bricks. But oh well.
All right. Santa, who's just been kidnapped, tortured, and just watched a bug monster die at the hands of a living skeleton, says, "Of course I can fix it. I'm Santa Claus." Lays his finger alongside his nose and flies away.
Well, to be fair, this is kind of his thing, right? What's the implication there supposed to be?
I don't know, dude. This thing is snapping my mental strength.
Oh boy, it's been a while since we had one of those, though.
Yep. All right. And that's it. There's a montage of Santa doing a Christmas Eve speed run to replace all of Jack's fucking awesome, in parentheses, presents with more traditional ones. Yeah, those things were kind of causing a lot of chaos.
Yeah, but I agree with her. If I were a kid in this universe, and I woke up on Christmas morning and saw that stuff, would not be upset at all. Would probably be the coolest thing ever. But then again, I was a weird kid who asked for books on theoretical physics and then magic for Christmas most years. So, yeah, weird.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
All right. Again, since only Christmas is represented and Christmas is entire purposes of receiving gifts from a Santa Claus who is objectively real in the universe of the film, any families who don't celebrate Christmas are presumably skewered out of this windfall. What?
The usual argument of, in universes where Santa definitively exists, why does he discriminate against people that don't celebrate Christmas? That's the argument she's making.
But most of the time when he's shown to be real, he gives everyone presents. Like, well, obviously like the nice listers, but
yeah. But there's always in the background the implication of somewhere on the planet there must be Jews not celebrating Christmas and therefore they lose out. Yeah, I guess is the point she's making. But yeah, it's just the usual argument of like, in a universe where someone like Santa Claus existed, why would he stop at only the people that celebrate Christmas? To which my response would be, there's nothing stopping Jews or Muslims or whatever from celebrating Christmas too. It's just adding a holiday. In the same way as there are plenty of atheists that celebrate Christmas even though they're not Christians because they like the traditions. So presumably, why wouldn't they just do that in these kind of stories? And if they choose not to, then at that point it's on them.
Okay. Santa even takes the time to swing by and give Halloween Town its first snowfall. But this isn't miracle snow. This isn't snow falling to save Angel the sad sack vampire from sunlight, or a sudden cold snap to reincorporate Frosty, or rain changing to snow to tell us that George Bailey is back in the right timeline. What is your fucking point?
Again, and also, you could say the same thing about all of those cases you just listed. Other than the fact that obviously someone has to be, or something has to be behind the process to make it happen. You could just as easily say it was Odin or Zeus or who, pick a deity. It doesn't have to be the Abrahamic one. It could just as easily be any of the other ones, or it could just as easily be an automatic metaphysical force thing, not a being behind it. Because in most cases, no being is involved necessarily. I mean, technically, in A Christmas Carol, you have the three spirits of Christmas, and you have Jacob Marley, but Jacob Marley is a human ghost, and the spirits of Christmas are the spirits of Christmas. That doesn't necessarily mean they report to the boss, and the boss happens to be, capital G God or anything. Like, it's actually kind of remarkable for how unchristian, or how not specifically Christian, A Christmas Carol is for when it was written, because it was written in the 1890s. But yeah, there really aren't that many explicit God references there either. And A Christmas Carol is probably the default example of a Christmas story. So what exactly are you playing at? This thing that you're claiming is new about The Nightmare Before Christmas is not new. And it hasn't been for at least, I would say, about 50 years. For pretty much for as long as they've been making Christmas specials on TV and stuff. In fact, you could make you could just as easily make the argument that stuff like Charlie Brown's Christmas is the odd man out for actually bothering to tie it back to biblical bullshit. Moving on.
Yeah. Jack and Santa don't have a heart-to-heart about the Essence.
Essence?
It's plural.
Essences?
Essence. Mother. What he said.
Essences. There we go.
Yeah, what he said. Of their respective holidays. The rest of the citizens of Halloween Town are openly relieved that Jack is back to normal, and the big culminating image isn't anything to do with Christmas. It's Jack and Sally kissing in the cemetery. Jack and Sally kissing in the cemetery, which does not complete the narrative through line of the movie. The romance is a lovely cul-de-sac.
Sweetheart, I don't think you understood the narrative through line of the movie, as I've aptly demonstrated throughout this entire article. And the point of the ending is supposed to be Jack finding the inciting incident of Nightmare Before Christmas is Jack feels like there's a hole in his heart because Halloween has become too stagnant for him. He's gotten too good at it, and there's no challenge anymore. Yada yada yada, and he feels a hole in his heart that something needs to fill. He tries to fill it with the epicness that is Christmas, which, to be honest, I can't blame him. But by virtue of being a creature of Halloween, Halloween and Christmas aren't supposed to go together. Meanwhile, Sally has been pining for Jack from afar for a long time, and she even kind of knows how he feels as far as the feeling stagnant and stale and needing something to fill the void in his life. So at the end, while Christmas snow is falling on the ground, courtesy of Santa Claus, they come to the realization of how much they care for each other, and then they proceed to fill the hole in each other's lives, both literally both metaphorically and presumably literally eventually, which I want to know what their kids look like. Just because I think designing Jack and Sally's kids will be a really cool design. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, not to mention that, but you could make quite a long list of movies that are Christmas movies that involve a romance subplot. So, saying it's a narrative cul-de-sac to have a Christmas movie end with a love subplot kind of is lying, or well, not lying, but mistaken. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. The opening of the movie is that Jack feels empty and that his life has lost meaning. He discovers Christmas and makes learning Christmas his new purpose, but he never actually learns the meaning of Christmas. Jack's lament and What's This are all about searching for something indefinable. And poor Jack, the song he sings after realizing he can't be Santa Claus, muses on his failure to find it. And sure, he realizes that his job as the Pumpkin King is actually what he loves, but a verse before that he basically says he should give up and let himself die because he can't understand Christmas.
It's not that Christmas is undefinable, it's that he specifically, as a Halloween being, is ill-equipped to find it. And granted, there are several criticisms there, like, for example, if he wanted to reproduce a more accurate Christmas, why wouldn't he just send beings from Halloween into Christmas Town to kind of give them the same feeling he got when he was there? That's something that's always kind of bothered me in terms of the plot of the movie. Why doesn't he try to, instead of having the town meeting, or after having the town meeting even, he could take them all to the Christmas door, push one or two in each time, and then they can see for themselves what Christmas is supposed to be, and they could actually maybe reproduce it correctly. Or B, the obvious the other obvious thing that has always bugged me, why does he use science to try and unravel Christmas when he knows it's a magical thing, and therefore he probably should use something magical to understand it? Why couldn't he just ask the witches? But never mind. Moving on.
Right. Okay. So maybe the film does think the holiday has some intrinsic meaning and acknowledges that the dispensation of presence isn't it exactly. But neither the hero nor the audience are ever given access to the something hidden through the door. Christmas rolls on. Jack's friends and colleagues go back to normal. Dr. Finkelstein has a new bride. Sally begins a partnership with her crush, but Jack is never allowed into Christmas, whatever that means.
Again, we as the audience are perfectly aware of the something more. It's Jack who isn't. Part of the dramatic irony of Nightmare Before Christmas is we all know there's something more to Christmas, but he can't see it because he's a creature of Halloween, and therefore, by his very nature, is ill-equipped to do Christmas. Granted, he could have planned it better, but my sporting plot dissections aside, for the purposes of the movie, it's about the forces of dark and the forces of light being necessary to counterbalance each other and not being easy to mix correctly. How you missed this very obvious connection, I will never know. Because if there's a movie that does that moral better, the moral of dark and light intermixing is difficult from a natural perspective. I can't think of it because that's the one thing that Nightmare Before Christmas is very good at, simultaneously being a Christmas movie and a Halloween movie, and showing the specific roles of each. Moving on.
Yep. All right. And that's okay. I think part of the beauty of Nightmare Before Christmas and part of why it's become such a classic lies in Jack's ultimate failure. He tries really hard, but in the end, he never quite gets it. The movie never holds his bony hand to explain it, and that's fine. The movie also never sits us down to lecture us about the true meaning of any of the holidays. It allows us the space to celebrate however we want, or to not celebrate at all, and instead bask in the beauty of killer stop motion animation, free of the pressure to think about what any of these holidays mean to us. And isn't that a beautiful relief from the whirlwind of emotion and expectation we fall into each December? How the I don't know how your life goes, but that's not how it really works for me.
Yeah, no, this is her being really, really just bitter and myopic and cynical and bitchy. Yeah, again, try conceiving of the fact that the meaning of things doesn't necessarily have to be a moral or like puritanical meaning. It can be a qualitative one or a mechanical one. And in the vein of it's mechanical, not moral, Nightmare Before Christmas does a really good job as far as that goes by showing the mechanics of the interactions between the forces of Christmas and the forces of Halloween, and how those two forces are necessary to play off each other and need to be kept to their own little spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of fascinatingly, I don't think you could make a movie like Nightmare Before Christmas if you didn't understand Christmas and Halloween really, really well. Because ironically, the fact that the movie exists kind of contradicts its own theme. Because they did successfully manage to capture the magic of Christmas simultaneously with the magic of Halloween, and that's why it works.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Moving on, so
Yeah.
holy fuck that article.
Hour and a half. So
I haven't seen anyone that ignorantly arrogant since the Game of Thrones article
Yeah.
and the woman who thought that she was better than everyone because she didn't like it.
Yeah, I will say, we are gonna have to skip an article tonight.
Well, maybe not, because the druid one is really, really short.
But I know you don't, so.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Give me a second to screen share. I'm just like, I'm not gonna lie, folks, I am like kind of dead tired.
Again, he possibly has the goof, so that might explain some things.
And also, dude, I woke up at like 3 a.m. this morning.
Oh, fuck.
Been up ever since.
That was literally when I was going to bed.
Yeah, so.
So, next.
Yeah, okay, so this is from Esquire.com. The 15 best scary movies, Christmas movies to watch between now and December 25th.
Well, if we're gonna skip one, maybe we should skip that one or push it to next week.
All right.
Because it's a top 10 list, and each entry is going to take us a while.
Okay, fair enough. Give me a sec, folks. All right. Nolan sent me this one. Well, like I said, he sent me everything. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is from BBC.com. Stonehenge Winter Solstice Band criticized by Senior Druid. I'll give you 3 guesses on why Dalton sent me this. Yeah, this was published one day ago.
Yeah, the obvious answer is because the winter solstice is tomorrow, and I figured since there were some news happenings regarding the winter solstice, we might as well cover them the day before solstice.
This is interesting. English Heritage is using COVID crisis as an excuse not to allow people to celebrate the winter solstice at Stonehenge, a senior druid has said.
Yeah, the long and the short of it is that's bullshit. That they're doing that. The English Heritage Foundation is the organization that's supposed to be in charge of like all the historical landmarks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And well, let's just get into the explanation, and then I'll say my piece as we go along.
King Arthur Pendragon said the ancient stone circle should be open as other places of worship are. English Heritage maintains it cannot host the usual celebrations at the prehistoric monument on 21st of December due to safety concerns. Okay,
I find it extremely ironic that the guy's like magical name is King Arthur. It's hilarious. So for those that need context of that, sometimes people will choose a false name for themselves to work magic under, so that if they get on the wrong side of an entity, they can avoid giving the entity their real name, and also to get their mind in the right mood to work magic. My name is unique enough that I can use my regular one, so I don't have that problem. But I'm just gonna put myself out on a limb here and say this guy's a really big fan of Arthurian legend. Not that I blame him.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, it's funny because you and I had a slight chat on the name Pendragon earlier. So
we did.
Yeah. Yeah. So the sun. I do have some things to say though about the whole. Like I can understand health concerns. That's fine. But the thing is, like, I don't think there would be large gatherings for this kind of thing. I mean, like, I'm not trying to. I don't think people, like, a lot of people nowadays don't really celebrate the winter solstice as much.
Yeah, according to the article, I think it's 5,000 people that show up.
Okay, well, that is a lot, but I can understand health, like certain concerns, obviously, because of how 2020's been. But no, I do think it is like not allowing people to go there to celebrate something is kind of dumb.
Especially because A, it's a public place, like it's a public monument, and B, it's outside. So if churches and synagogues and mosques can be open, then why the fuck would you close a historical site? Because that's essentially what Stonehenge is now. It just happens to be very, very important to druids and other pagans who find their English heritage to be a huge part of their magical practice.
All right. The sunrise at the Stones will be live streamed this year instead. I remember hearing that magic doesn't really work much online. Like,
well, there's that, and there's also the fact that these kinds of people tend to be very, very fixated on the cycles of nature. So honestly, I can see a situation where you'd find that insulting, because the whole point of most versions of paganism and in particular druidry is supposed to be being in tune with the cycles of nature and shit. Like that's the religious aspect of it. So to cut a druid or a Celtic neo-pagan off of natural cycles would be a little bit like shutting down the connection between a Christian and their God. Or like God sending a memo to all Christians being like, yeah, I'm not answering any prayers anymore, fuck off. That would be kind of traumatizing, would it not?
all right. For pagans, the winter solstice is an important event as it welcomes the new sun. It is also the day of the year with the least sunlight. Very frustrated. Excuse me. The event usually attracts crowds of up to 5,000 people, and the English Heritage said it took the decision in the interest of public health following advice from Wiltshire Council and Wiltshire Police. However, Mr. Pendragon argued you can't get more COVID secure than you can in the middle of the field.
Yeah, that is actually a really good point, come to think of it. It's outside, so if they need to get further away, they can just get further away.
Yeah. Again, like the large crowd thing, I can understand his concern.
Yeah, but the thing that's interesting to me is I'd be curious if other stone circles like Stonehenge are closed as well, because there's a fuck ton of stone circles throughout the British Isles. It's actually one of the things. Reading this article made me want to go to England for Christmas someday just to take part in one of these winter solstice festivals. Because I think it'd be. I'm not a druid or a pagan, but I'm close enough that I can appreciate these sorts of celebrations.
Mm-hmm. Moving on,
Yeah, go ahead.
he said he will still observe the sunrise as close as legally possible to the stones from adjacent land. It is very frustrating that English Heritage are using the COVID crisis as an excuse not to open Stonehenge. He said, English Heritage will not allow us into Stonehenge, and they haven't all year. My argument is it should be open as other places of worship are like temples, mosques, churches, and synagogues. Because if you can't socially distance in a field in Salisbury Plain, where can you?
Again, I completely agree with his point here, because buildings are by their very nature closer together than huge megalithic stones out in the middle of a field. So people convening in a church or in a synagogue, no problem. People convening out in the middle of a field where they can get enough adequate space from each other, apparently that's forbidden for reasons. Yeah, I don't get it. It does piss me off, to be honest. Like, again, not a druid, not a pagan. I'm an occultist, but close enough in that same sort of vein or that same sort of family to be pissed off by this. And that's to say nothing of all the entities that might get pissed off by this.
Yeah. All right. An English Heritage spokesperson said, "Our plan to live stream the winter solstice, a spiritually significant time for many, is supported by representatives of the pagan and druid groups with whom we work. Although disappointed that they cannot attend in person, the community respects the fact that the pandemic and its safety restrictions are exceptional circumstances."
Okay, again, I guess if you asked and they're fine with it, that's fine. But to prevent those that aren't fine with it from indulging in their practice does piss me off. Because again, this is a nature-based religion, and so cutting them off from the forces of nature sort of is like cutting. It'd be like God sending an angel to every Christian on earth, and then giving those people a memo, being like, "Yep, from this point on, God is not answering any more prayers. Fuck off." Yeah, no, fuck you. Or I guess it'd be kind of like the Bruce Almighty prayer email from that movie.
Yeah. I really like this. That was more your thing than mine.
Yeah, and again, I guess my solution, if I was to offer one, would be for those that want to be near Stonehenge at this time and you can't. There are a bunch of other stone circles throughout the British Isles, and a lot of them are oriented in a similar way. So I would recommend finding the closest stone circle to you with those kind of alignments and doing it there, because that's actually one of the ways in which I kind of envy anyone who's magically oriented who lives in England, because you have massive fucking stone circles at your beck and call, basically. And I'm minorly jealous.
Mm.
Moving on.
And so this will be our last oracle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to be passed out on stream.
Yes. Also, because you're the one who has the power to end the stream, that would be very, very bad.
That was implied. All right. So this is from ReadersDigest.com. 13 fascinating winter solstice traditions around the world. This was written by Tina Don Vito. And this was I'm just going to assume written on December 9th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The shortest day and longest night of the year inspire mystical celebrations, both old and new. In anticipation of the sun's return in 2020 in the northern hemisphere, the winter solstice is December 21st. Remember, the days are just get longer from here.
Mm-hmm.
Winter solstice traditions. Just when you think December has enough to celebrate between Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and the impending New Year, there's yet another reason to gather with your loved ones and celebrate the winter solstice. You might be more familiar with the winter solstice as the day with the shortest amount of sunlight and the longest night of the year. But around the world, many cultures still celebrate the longest night of the year with unique winter solstice traditions. Read on to find out what they are, plus find out what the 2020 winter solstice means for your zodiac.
To be fair, I think that Christmas borrowed enough from the winter solstice that listing them both kind of as separate days is a little bit redundant, because everything Christmas iconography was borrowed from older traditions or other traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, though.
Right. Winter solstice traditions. Saint Lucia Day, Scandinavia.
This one I actually
Excuse
hadn't
me.
heard of. I was impressed that they pulled one I hadn't heard of.
Like many days we celebrate, ancient festivals observing the winter solstice merged with newer traditions to create the holiday season as we know it today. In Scandinavia, St. Lucia Day on December 13th, the solstice by the old calendar. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Marks the start of the Christmas season with the procession.
Processions.
Thank you. Of
Mm-hmm.
young women in white robes, red sashes, and wreaths of candles on their heads, lighting the way through the darkness of winter. Honoring St. Lucy, this festival incorporated pagan winter solstice celebrations marked by bonfires, ginger snaps, saffron flavored buns, and glögg are also traditionally served. It's very,
Mm-hmm.
actually very interesting, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Winter solstice traditions, Dongxi, China. This thousands of years old festival on December 21st, 22nd, or 23rd is celebrated with family gatherings and a big meal, including rice balls called Tang Yuan, or I think, thought to mark the end of the harvest festival. The holiday also has roots in the Chinese concept of yin and yang. After the solstice, the abundance of darkness in winter will begin to be balanced with the light of the sun.
Yeah. Again, it's always about the balancing of forces and the interplay of dark and light and all that
And
jazz.
yeah, and here's something we covered literally before this.
Yeah.
Stonehenge gathering, England. Although no one knows exactly why the ancient circle of Stonehenge was built, there's no denying it lines up with the movements of the sun. Archaeological research suggests winter solstice festivals happen at Stonehenge, and modern revelers have taken up the tradition, gathering at dawn the day after the longest night. This year, December 21st, through celebration, though celebrations are canceled this year because of the pandemic or coronavirus pandemic, to witness the magical occurrence of the sun rising through the stones. The best part, it's free of charge, although parking is limited. Visitors can even walk up right up to the stones, an area usually roped off for this peaceful and sacred celebration. That is,
Which makes the previous article all the more piss off worthy.
yeah, it's very interesting, and I would have loved to go there prior and watch this festival or gathering.
Yeah, if I ever make it to England, I'm gonna have to make sure it's close enough to this time of year that I can take part in that. 'Cause that just sounds awesome.
Mhm.
It'd be kind of like celebrating Halloween in the middle of Salem, Massachusetts. It's just the sheer cool factor because I've read about ancient Celtic lore and stuff. And granted, modern Druidry and modern Celtic neo-paganism are shadows of their former selves and not very close to the original traditions necessarily, but it's the closest thing we have. So it'd be cool.
Yeah. So Shabay Yalda, Iran. If I said that name wrong, I am sorry. Um, this ancient Persian festival, like many winter solstice holidays, celebrates the end of shorter days and the victory of light over darkness. Meaning birth, Yalda is marked by family gatherings, candles, originally fires lit all night, poetry readings, and a feast to get through the longest night of the year. Nuts and fruits, including watermelon and pomegranates, are traditionally eaten. Legend has it that eating the fruits of summer will protect you from illness in winter.
Hmm. And again, I'm fascinated by just how universal the the forces at play always are.
Huh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Winter Solstice Lantern Festival, Vancouver.
Yep. I'd never heard of this one either. It's really interesting.
Yeah. To honor the many cultural traditions that celebrate the winter solstice, Vancouver's Secret Lantern Society created the city's Solstice Lantern Festival. Participants can attend workshops to create their lantern, and then on the night of the solstice processions march throughout the city, culminating in fire performances. Attendees can also try to find their way through the labyrinth of light, a maze of 600 candles that invites visitors to let go of old thoughts and find new possibilities for the coming year. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, yeah, good for you, Canada. I haven't said that in a long time, but good for you, Canada. Now,
Yeah.
can we please get rid of Justin Trudeau, please?
Okay. Um, Winter solstice traditions. Toji, Japan.
I didn't
Um,
know about this one either.
yeah. The winter solstice in Japan, called Toji, has a few interesting customs associated with it. Traditionally, a winter squash called kabocha is eaten, one of only a few crops that would have been available. A hot bath with yuzu citrus fruits is believed to refresh body and spirit, ward off illness, as well as soothe dry winter skin. And apparently rodents called capybaras love yuzu baths as well. It's become popular for Japanese zoos to throw the fruit into the warm waters the animals soak in on the winter solstice. Huh.
Hmm. Yeah, capybaras are the world's largest rat, by the way.
All right. The winter, yeah. Santo Tomas Festival, Guatemala.
Hmm.
Although the Catholic Church now observes the feast of Saint Thomas on July 3rd in uh, Chichicastenango, Guatemala, the festival is still celebrated for a week leading up to the winter solstice of December 21st. Why? Likely because it's a mix of the Catholic ceremony with native Mayan rituals that may have been timed to the solstice. Today, the feast is marketed with brightly colored traditional costumes, mass parades, fireworks, and music. The highlight is the death-defying custom of the flying pole dance, climbing a 100-foot pole, tying on a rope, and jumping off the top.
That one I probably will not be adding to my Yuletide repertoire. No, thank you. That sounds terrifying. I mean, good for those that are brave enough to do it, but I am not among them.
Mhm. Soyal, Hopi tribe or Hopi tribe. Uh, the indigenous Hopi people of present-day northern Arizona celebrate the winter solstice as part of their religious tradition of Kachia or Katsania.
I think you had it closer to the first time.
What do you mean?
The way you pronounced it the first time was, I think, closer to how it's actually supposed to be pronounced.
Kachinya?
Yeah, I think.
Well, no, it also says or Katsina, like
Oh, okay.
yeah, which are spirits representing the natural world.
Oh, Kachinas. That's what the. Okay, duh. My brain did not make
Yeah.
that connection.
In the soil solstice ceremony, led by a tribal chief, the sun is welcomed back to its summer path with ritual dances. Gift giving to children, prayers for the coming year, singing, and storytelling are also part of the festivals. Prayer stickers and kachina dolls are often made in preparation for the celebration.
Hmm.
Burning the clocks. Brighton, England.
That's neat.
Yeah. Fire, needed to light the dark days of winter, has traditionally been part of winter solstice celebrations. The modern-day Burning of Clocks festival in the seaside town of Brighton took up that notion for its yearly solstice parade, bonfire, and fire show. People wearing costumes representing clocks and the passage of time process with lanterns made of wood and paper to the beach, where the lanterns are burned in a huge bonfire, symbolizing the wishes, hopes, and fears that will be passed into the flames. Newgrange Gathering, Ireland. Hey. This 5,200-year-old passage tomb and ancient temple are aligned to the winter solstice. A small opening above the entrance fills with light on several sunrises, surrounding the solstice, gradually extending throughout the chamber to illuminate it. The dramatic effect lasts for 17 minutes. Although the exact reason why the tomb was created this way isn't known, it's speculated to mark the beginning of a new year and the triumph of light over darkness. Today, visitors...
And again, like I mentioned last article, for anyone that's upset they can't see Stonehenge this time around, I might recommend going here instead, if you can get all the way to Ireland in time.
Today, visitors can apply for a lottery drawing to be inside the temple at the moment of the sunrise. Others will gather outside the monument. Huh.
That would be really cool, actually. Yeah.
With my family's luck, though, I'd probably never get in.
Or you'd never get out again.
Yeah, probably. Illuminations. California's mission churches. A similar illumination effect has been discovered halfway around the world in more recent, though still old, structures. Mission churches in California and Latin America, such as Old Mission San Juan Bautista, built by Spanish missionaries in the late 18th and early 19th centuries to convert Native Americans to Catholicism.
Well,
to be fair, the Catholic Church were kind of assholes. Still kind of are, but
less so now because they're not like burning people or tying people to the stake, but baby steps. And I can't remember the last time we had a crusade, so I guess win? Yes? No? Oh boy.
It really depends on how you define win, but whatever. At the dawn of the winter solstice, a shaft of light appears through a window over the door, illuminating the altar and its sacred objects. The churches appear to be built purposefully to align with the sun's path, in what could have been an effort to merge the indigenous people's reverence of the solstice with Christian beliefs.
Well, I guess anything to do the conversion, but at least they got it right, so...
Today, people gather at the churches to witness this recently rediscovered phenomenon and to celebrate with Native Americans as well as Catholic traditions. Huh.
Yay, actual successful multiculturalism.
Winter solstice traditions. Dongji, South Korea. Little New Year is marked in South Korea with the traditional eating of a red bean porridge called potgyeok. Red is considered to be a lucky color, so the dish is meant to keep bad spirits away while embracing good wishes for the coming year. Other Dongji traditions include giving calendars, as Korean kings used to do, and socks. And this is a day Koreans wish for snow. Cold weather on the winter solstice is said to bring a bountiful harvest, but warm weather will not. Huh.
So I guess the South Koreans are also dreaming of a white Christmas.
Yep. Montoll Festival, Cornwall, England. A reinterpretation of ancient Cornish winter traditions. The 12-year-old Winter Solstice Festival of Montoll in the town of Penzance celebrates the culture of England's westernmost peninsula. Wearing carnival-like costumes, geysers possess the lanterns, creating a river of fire, meant to celebrate the return of the sun. In the old custom, geysers would roam the streets, putting on skits, songs, and pranks. Part of the fun was trying to guess what was who. Today, traditional music, dancing, and performance add to the festive atmosphere.
So if Christmas were also Mardi Gras, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. Which sounds awesome.
Sounds fun to me.
Yeah. All right, folks. So yeah, we are gonna have to call it now because, like I said, I'm actually very tired. We do. Yeah, we'll see you next week after Christmas, and I hope everyone has a great Christmas. Honestly.
Yes, and for those who will be celebrating the solstice tomorrow, fuck the English government for closing down Stonehenge, and I hope you have a great one too.
Mm. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara.